In this exercise, we're going to see and compare the effects of each of the three auto commands. Notice that I have open fatherofoumoney.psd. I also have open the histogram panel, and I have source set to selected layer so that we're seeing the histograms for a single layer at a time. Now we're going to start with Autotone, so I've selected the Autotone layer here inside the Layers panel. That's the top right fragment of money inside the composition. What the Autotone command does, incidentally, is it goes ahead and reads the histogram for each channel and modifies it independently. It goes ahead and stretches the histogram across the entire width of the graph here, which enhances the contrast and absolutely annihilates the color cast, as we're about to see. Now, the cast that's associated with this money happens to be indigenous. In other words, it wasn't added by the scanner. However, Photoshop doesn't know that, and it goes ahead and gets rid of any color cast it finds. So go up to the image menu and notice if you loaded D keys, you don't have keyboard shortcuts for any of these commands. I've actually stolen them and assigned them to different features inside the software, in part because those shortcuts weren't all that memorable for these commands in the first place, and also because even though the auto commands are very useful learning tools, my guess is that you won't be using them often enough to warrant shortcuts. Anyway, I'll go ahead and choose Autotone. I want you to watch the image and the histograms. And I'll go ahead and zoom in on the top right money there. And notice I have the navigator panel open. I'll go ahead and scoot my display over so that the money is more or less centered. So this is the before view, greenish highlights, greenish shadow detail as well. And this is the after view, neutral highlights, that is colorless. And then the shadows, if anything, are a little bit reddish. So what's going on there? Well, take a look at what's happened to each one of the histograms. It's been spread out across the width of the entire graph here. Also notice the composite view. The shadows are now a combination of red and green overlapping each other, so we have some cyan spikes going on there. And then the red shadows show up later. So because the red shadow detail is brighter, the shadows are showing up as red here inside the image window. And that's the thing about the Autotone command. It has a habit, if anything, of going overboard where removing the color cast is concerned. So as opposed to just neutralizing the color cast, it often ends up sending the color cast in the opposite direction. So where we used to have a green cast associated with this money, we now have a little bit of a red cast going on. So that's the Autotone command. Let's go ahead and compare that to Auto Contrast. I'll click on the Auto Contrast layer here inside the Layers panel. Up here in the Navigator panel, I'll click in the lower left region so we can see that layer. Then I'll go up to the Image menu and choose the Auto Contrast command. Now, very much like Auto Levels, it goes ahead and pulls apart that histogram. So it spreads the histogram to fill the entire graph, but it does so strictly on a composite basis. So it doesn't work channel by channel. It looks at the composite histogram and stretches it. And the result is something along these lines, where we get an enhanced degree of contrast. So this is the before version of the money, low contrast. This is the after version, high contrast. However, we still have the exact same color cast we had before. That is, the highlights remain green, the shadows remain a little bit greenish, and the money remains green overall. And of course, where this money is concerned, that's appropriate. So far, again, where this image is concerned, this is the most accurate correction. All right, I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the right here, again inside the Navigator panel, and I'll click on Auto Color on the Auto Color layer to make it active since it's the remaining layer inside the composition. And then I'll go up to the Image menu and choose the Auto Color command. Now, what Auto Color is going to do, not only is it going to stretch each one of these histograms on a channel-by-channel basis, but it's going to weight the histograms a little differently than Autotone did. It's going to seek to neutralize these shadows, and it's also going to seek to neutralize the highlights, and then it's going to try to find what ought to be a neutral color inside the midtones and make that absolutely gray, which is something the other commands can't begin to do. So I'll go ahead and choose Auto Color, and we get this effect here. Now take a look at the shadow detail. The three histograms overlap each other where the shadows are concerned, and as a result, our shadows are absolutely neutral now. So this is the before version of the image, and this is the after version thanks to Auto Color. We also have very neutral shadows, more neutral than what we saw with Auto Levels, and we still have the obvious color inside the image. That is to say, the serial number is green, the seal is green, and we have some colorful threads going on in the background. And that is ultimately the difference between these three commands. I'll go ahead and zoom out so that we can see them compared to each other. Top left, we have the original version of the image, that is to say low contrast green color cast. Upper right, we have the auto levels version, possibly the highest contrast of the bunch, and an opposite reddish color cast. Down left, we have the auto contrast version, which delivers enhanced contrast but keeps the green color cast. And then down right, we have auto color, more nuanced contrast as you can see, and the most neutrality of the bunch. In the next exercise, I'll show you how these commands fare when applied to a standard digital photograph.